Here at UC Expo, a lot of people are showing off like software. However, Crestron over here and Mark, who's kindly speaking to us today, also happen to have hardware. So do you want to tell us about Crestron and this device in particular?
Yeah, so Crestron have been around for over 40 years now. Predominantly we started off as a manufacturer of hardware in the audiovisual industry. But as over the last few years, the kind of the audiovisual and the IT world have started to converge. Not only have we developed our hardware product set, but also our software development in the back end in relationship with Microsoft and others to make sure that we bridge that gap between the two industries as they continue to converge into one.
So we have here what looks kind of like a tablet with a speaker on the back. This is, actually now that I think about it, it looks almost like the new Amazon like Echo thing, right? Very similar concept, I assume. So what does it do? What are all the, I'm assuming it's touchscreen with a bunch of fancy buttons.
This is what we call our Crestron Mercury device. Now this is taking a lot of technology that we've developed over a number of years and taken all of the best bits of separate products and combine them all into one product so that we can offer people a solution for the smaller meeting room environment, the huddle spaces, the 4 to 6 to 8 person meeting rooms, which traditionally get a little bit overlooked sometimes in terms of how much technology you can get into that space. So this device allows us to, first and foremost, branch into a world of audio conferencing. So it is an audio conferencing unit in its own right. It has a 7-inch touchscreen built into the front of it. So we'll talk to Microsoft Exchange, we'll look at the calendar for the room, we'll look at Skype for Business meetings that are in there, we'll look at other meetings that we want to host, we'll get a visual representation for what's going on in the room, and it'll allow us to really host an effective audio conferencing in a small room and get a lot of technology out of one unit.
So how does this sit on a Microsoft domain? Does it sit as a separate?
Unit itself right now would sit as a separate unit. Currently, this would sit within a SIP environment, so it can become a SIP endpoint on a SIP PBX setup.
Yeah.
So it can be effectively an extension of the telephone network. Right now, the way that this integrates with Microsoft is that it will use the native EWS communication to talk to the Exchange calendar for the room, so we can pull the information through and see what's going on from a booking perspective. In terms of fitting into a world of Skype for Business and the unified the conferencing and everything else that's going on, right now in its current version, we use other devices to host the soft codec. So if I'm a Skype for Business user and I want to come into this meeting room, host a Skype for Business call, I come along with my device, I can plug in 2 cables, a USB and an HDMI, and then what that's going to do is extend my device to the peripherals within the room.
Right.
So now I'm using a much higher grade quality microphone and speaker unit in the middle of the room. We're using a camera that's sitting above the display at the front of the room to really take my soft codec and extend it to the room peripherals, so it's much more suitable for the meeting room environment as opposed to us all huddling around the laptop trying to communicate with people at the other end. We are able to announce that we will very shortly be turning this device via a software upgrade into a native Skype for Business audio endpoint, so it will exist as a Skype for Business audio account within the Skype for Business world, and then by the end of the year it will be both an audio and a Visio unit.
And is that just a software update? So that's not
purely software upgrade, no hardware change. It will be a firmware update that we roll out through our channel partners to update the device and bring it into a world where you don't have to host a soft codec on your own device. It will exist as a Skype for Business endpoint within a Skype for Business infrastructure.
And what would the update process be for an end user? Would it, would they get a little notification saying update?
So there are a number of ways of updating the device. It can be configured to update itself automatically, so it can go away and it can pull down information from the web. It will realise it needs an upgrade and it can apply that if you allow it to do that on an auto basis. We find that clients prefer to actually manage that process as opposed to let it just happen overnight without anybody knowing. So that means there will be information passed to the end users. They will get an alert to say there is an upgrade available if you require it. If you would like to do so, please contact your service provider and they can help you work through it. It's actually pushed through the web interface configuration browser that sits on the device itself. You browse to a file, you upload it, and away you go. It updates itself, it comes back, and it will become a Skype for Business endpoint.
Perfect. So if we get Paul to come in slightly tighter, can we grab a look at this? So this is the unit itself. So if we have, this says reserved for the next 15 minutes for a hypothetical meeting.
So this is pulling the information through from the room's calendar account from Exchange. So the attendee and the subject matter for the meeting is being displayed on here and also passed through to the on-screen display. I can then use this touch interface to work my way through and control the room and control the call. So as I work my way across, if I wanted to come into the room and purely use this as a presentation tool, I get a choice of either using HDMI, so I can plug my HDMI cable into my device, I select HDMI, and I can present onto the screen. I also have the ability to select what we call Air Media. Now this is a wireless presentation device from Crestron, so it allows you to wirelessly present from mobile devices, iOS, Android, PC, Mac, whatever it is that you want to come in and use, and present via the network infrastructure onto the screen wirelessly. I then work my way through. I can select whether or not I want to host an audio call via our standard SIP infrastructure. If I want to, I can pair the device to my mobile. So I can use a Bluetooth connection to pair it to my mobile. So instead of having to maybe all huddle around my phone whilst it's on speakerphone, I can come along and I can connect to the device. It will look as if I get into my car and my car takes over the phone. So it's not just a speakerphone extension, it is taking control of the device. So the call's still hosted on my phone, but I can dial out from the Mercury unit. We're using the Mercury speakers, we're using the Mercury microphone pickup to enhance the audio quality for everybody who's in the room. It's worth noting that once that call is then hung up, we will drop the Bluetooth token, so when you're walking past the room in the corridor the next day, it won't automatically connect when somebody else is using the room. I then can also select just my USB connection, so if I want to host an audio call via a soft codec from another device, I can just plug my USB cable in and away we go. Or I can move on to my web conferencing selection where I can then attach my HDMI, and now I'm going to be extending the unit to using those room peripherals to really enhance the soft codec hosted meeting environment.
So if we plug in that USB and HDMI cable and pull it up on here, let's see what it looks like. So as you can see, it's got the whole 13 minutes reserve thing on the screen as well here. So that is...
This is a fully customizable on-screen display that's coming from the unit itself. Customers can brand that themselves, they can put logos, they can put meeting information about the actual how to use the room, maybe some sort of client Wi-Fi access codes, purely just to welcome users into the rooms. It gives people a little bit more confidence that they are in the right space, as opposed to maybe just walking into a meeting room that they think they've booked and aren't sure whether that's where they should or shouldn't be. So you can see that it's just purely duplicating my display from my laptop straight away. It's picked up on the Mercury device that I'm using it as the speakerphone, and we're pulling down the USB webcam that we've got at the front of the display. That means that immediately my soft codec is going to pick up the fact that I'm using these peripherals instead of my laptop, and we get it to just purely use the room devices as opposed to the dedicated laptop user from there. There's a couple of other options on here that I can use. This whole top section of the device is actually a capacitive touch section, so if we are all huddled around the table and we actually wanted to mute the call so that we could talk about it, if I'm sat around the back, I can just touch the top of the device and it's going to go into a muted state. I can then bring it back to life with a simple tap on the top. It just means I don't have to reach around the front every time I want to try and select what's going on. We also have some occupancy sensing built into the front of the unit here, so that you notice that on-screen display that we had. If we go back to look at what we had on the screen there, to make sure that we can keep these devices as efficient as possible. If I'm not in my meeting room or there's no booking scheduled in the room, the technology doesn't really need to be on. We're wasting energy by doing that. So we can shut the system down and then wake it up as soon as I walk in. So it's going to pick up my occupancy, it's going to wake the screen up, it's going to welcome me in, and then we can move from there. So it just makes it a lot more kind of efficient way of using the meeting room environment.
And on the subject of occupancy, what is the protocol for if you walk in and you don't have a meeting booked, right? You're with someone, you glance at the calendar, you're like, oh wait, there's a half an hour gap, let's quickly go in.
So if there wasn't a meeting booked in this environment, it would just give me a message on the screen on the touch panel here which would say reserve now. So if you want to use the space from an ad hoc perspective, you walk into the room, you hit the reserve now button, it will go away and it will update the booking information, both from a local perspective but also from an exchange perspective, so nobody else can kind of create a double booking or anything. You just move on and use the room as you please. What we can then do is we can start to monitor that type of environment. So the nice thing about Mercury is the fact that it fits into a lot of spaces that traditionally don't have too much technology deployed into, mainly predominantly for budget reasons. Now, the problem with that is it creates blind spots across an organisation, because if it's not something that's being monitored, end users themselves don't know whether the device is functioning, they don't know whether the space is being used, they don't know if it's being used for the right reasons. So it's all information that's useful to the users themselves. So this Mercury device will report all of that type of information up to our Fusion platform, which is an enterprise monitoring platform, which allows us to not only monitor and manage spaces and technology throughout an entire enterprise, but it also allows us to run reports based on that information that we are monitoring and providing remote support for. So if we have a lot of ad hoc bookings in that scenario that we just ran through, we can run a report via our Fusion software which will tell us that actually users are having more ad hoc meetings than they are scheduling, and start to manage how users work and how they use the information based on the technology we've deployed.
If people want to find out more, where is the best place for them to go? What's, website, Twitter, Facebook, what do you suggest?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, our website has a huge amount of information. For this device specifically, we have a kind of a micro page set up, so crestron.com/Mercury, take you straight to that product. Any other further information you require, crestron.com, you'll find everything you need on there. We have a centralized global social media platform. You'll find us as Crestron on all forms of social media that you can think of, where we have training videos, user guides, trade show demonstrations, all sorts of information on what you can find out about how to deploy our solutions.
Perfect. And finally, do you have anything to say specifically to the people who are watching at home or at work, or both?
If you need any information, please don't hesitate to get in contact. We'd love to come in and provide you with the information you need to give you a demonstration and help you make your meeting rooms as efficient as possible.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.